today we're going to be doing the hero guide. So, I had mentioned yesterday I wanted to do another character guide, and this is who I thought of doing. Now, I do want to say before this stream starts, I'm playing with my regular GameCube controller, but I have been noticing a few problems with it drifting, so if you ever see me just randomly crouch, or move my controller down at all, that's just because I'm not trying to just sort of like randomly fast fall, randomly jump off the ledge accidentally. Or not jump, but like drop from ledge. Things like that, spot dodge. If you see me do anything like that, just know that I'm technically not in control of my character at that time, so yeah. Although I usually notice it as well and am able to fix it pretty quickly. I do just want to say that I have been noticing that issue in a few of the recent streams, like the Breath of the Wild stream that I did yesterday. But yeah, today's character is going to be Hero, newest character in Smash. So haven't done a guide on him yet. He's pretty average in terms of speed. Like nothing too special here. You can get Accelerate if you do it by random chance. Here we go. And as you can see, his speed will increase, and his airspeed will increase. He has pretty slow airspeed, so if you're playing as someone like Fox or Yoshi, someone that can abuse characters with really bad aerial movements, then you will have a pretty good time fighting Hero in the air. But that just means, as Hero, you kind of just want to stay grounded. If you go into the air and you do get knocked off stage, you can recover pretty much for free if you have Zoom. You can also just use your up special as well. I'll try to demonstrate Zoom if I get it in the pop-up menu here, and I'll go more for this in a second, but here we go. Oh, sorry, my controller is drifting, as I mentioned before, so this little pop-up menu is going to be kind of difficult for me to access. It only drifts down, in case you were wondering. But yeah, as you can see, Zoom just lifts you instantly to the top of the stage unless you're underneath the stage already, in which case it will just make you hit your head on the roof pretty much, and then you won't be able to recover. But yeah, you have those options for off stage, but on stage, you can throw out aerials and things like that. If you're trying to avoid using spells, I would strongly recommend aerials. If you're playing against a projectile-based opponent, maybe like forward tilt or something like that. As forward tilt, the first and second hit will block projectiles. You can also stand still to block projectiles using your shield, but if you forward tilt towards your opponent, that also works. And forward tilt does move you forward slightly, so you will eventually be able to reach him if you just spam forward tilt, but I wouldn't really recommend that, as your opponent will most likely be able to see what you're doing and get around that. So, yeah, let me go ahead and turn on the trajectory guide, just to have that on, and then invincibility, CPU shuffling, and stale move, sorry. So, yeah, as for combos and things like that, in case you are interested in that, Hero does have a pretty good combo starter, being up air, specifically the falling version of up air. The falling version of up air combos into pretty much everything in the game that Hero has, so it combos into itself. If I can demonstrate it here, you have to make sure that you land on someone like that, but as you can see, combos into itself, combos into forward air, combos into up tilt. It can combo into forward smash at later percents. It's kind of difficult to do at lower percents, but it is possible. There we go. And it also can combo into up smash, but you do have to move. So that won't work until later percents due to you having to line yourself up for it, as up smash does not have any hitboxes on the side to be able to hit your opponent into it, like with most up smashes that are similar to Heroes, like Schultz and Lucina's, for example. They have similar up smash styles, but Heroes does not hit opponents unless they are above him. Whereas with up tilt, that will, although it is a bit slower. But yeah, up air itself, it just knocks directly upwards, so if you want to use it like just on stage, just or on its own instead of as a combo tool, it doesn't really have much use as it's pretty weak. It can kill at much higher percents on like Battlefield and things like that, but even then, like, maybe it can be used if someone's trying to sit underneath you and then, or not sit underneath you, but sit above you and you want to try to hit them from underneath. You can use up air as a pretty fast option, as it is one of your faster moves. For your other aerials, you've got like neutral air. Neutral air can combo into forward air at mid percent. although you can't really space it out if you want to do that. But at lower percents, it's pretty good for getting like a dash grab. You do have to delay yourself, just to make sure that your opponent lines up for it. But as you can see, Hero's grab range is pretty limited, so you have to make sure that you're pretty much in the right spot. And then you should be able to get a grab and then maybe juggle your opponent around a bit like that. I kind of just threw him up and then kind of just up aired, up tilted, things like that to keep them suspended in the air. So, yeah, for other aerials on the ground, you've got like forward air. Forward air is pretty good for just getting a grab, so like if you want to get a dash grab a bit easier, then maybe you land forward air. Forward air is a bit slower, so it's kind of unsafe to throw it if your opponent's expecting it. It's pretty easy to counter it, as they have a bit more time to react to that than something like neutral air, but neutral air is harder to get a grab with. And your opponent can also like react to your forward air. Like this isn't a grab confirm or anything, but it's pretty useful for getting a grab if you're flying at someone like online and they aren't really going to expect it, as it doesn't really offer any knockback pretty much, so you kind of just hit people into the ground with forward air, you can see here. Whereas with back air, it's a bit harder to do that with because you have to turn yourself around, and then it can also send opponents pretty far, but you might be able to get a grab out of it. If your opponent like shields or counters directly after being hit by that move, you should be able to get one. But if they're expecting it, then they will be able to react. For other tilts, because I kind of just said that forward tilt is pretty useful for approaching. Down tilt's not too particularly useful. I guess if you want to shield poke your opponent, but it doesn't really have any combo potential due to its launch angle. Like, I guess maybe at a higher percent you could combo into like up tilt or something, like around 30. But as you can see, it's just a really awkward to use move due to the ending line. Yeah, I'm trying to throw an up tilt here. There we go. But yeah, as you can see, it's not comboing or anything. If you do want to use it to shield poke, that is a pretty decent option, I would say. You can also try to like dash grab out of it. I definitely see that being something possible to do unless your opponent like air dodges in the air or something like that. Then obviously you won't be able to get the dash grab. But down tilt itself has a decent amount of range. Like you can see, you can kind of hit opponents from pretty far away. Although if you do space it, then you might not be able to get a grab as easy. It's kind of the same thing with like neutral air and forward air. If you space them properly, it might be a bit more difficult to grab. Here, let me just try it with neutral air. Yeah, as you can see, it's still about the same level of difficulty, I would say, although at higher percents it should be a bit easier. For your specials that you can just use in neutral, because we covered a few aerials, or I guess I didn't cover down air, or some of the other uses for forward air and back air. So, down air itself is decent to land with, not at lower percents really. Like if your opponent's at 0 or somewhere around that, you might not want to land on them with it, but if they're around like 40 or 50, whenever it starts to bounce them up like this, you can just use it to maybe get an up tilt like that. Like, as you can see, it's not true or anything, so your opponent can like react to it, but landing on them with a down air at least stuns them for a second. And then you can also, at about 80%, combo it into an up smash and it kill even without a crit. With a crit, though, it will be able to kill a bit faster. Another cool thing about down air that I really like, I can't really show it on this stage, but on battlefield stages or stages with platforms, you can actually hit your opponent through platforms with down air, and it'd be able to get the spike effect, so that way if someone's trying to, like if this Falcon were trying to up smash me through the platform, I could land somewhere near him and then just hit him with a down air, and potentially get a follow-up on that. And then out of a footstool, it's pretty useful, because it lines up a down air much easier. But yeah, this kill confirm will work a lot faster if you do get a critical hit, but even like at 80% it was able to kill on its own. Another kill confirm involving critical hits is up air to forward smash. This works at about 30%. You have a 12.5% chance to get a critical hit, in case you're wondering. But if you do land a critical hit at all during this combo, then you will be able to get a kill off of it. And it's just landing up air into forward smash. It works at 0 to about 30. And as you can see there, I was able to get a critical hit and 8 kill. So you can use that to take stocks pretty easily. For forward air and back air, they can kind of just be used for spacing. They have a lot of range. The main problem with them is the landing lag. You have a fair amount of landing lag performing back air. With forward air, you have a lot less, although you get a bit less range out of it. And they have about the same amount of startup. The only difference is that, like, back air, you swing upwards, and then with forward air, you swing downwards. Or at least that's, like, one of the main differences. With, like, neutral air, you kind of swing downwards, and then eventually somewhat behind you, but you don't cover full area above you. The back hit of neutral air, in case you're wondering, isn't really useful for much. You could potentially get a grab out of it at, like, around 20%. Or something like that, but even then, it's not too particularly useful. If you do get the forward hit, though, you can combo it into a forward air at about 30. Might be a bit higher than that, but it's somewhere around this percent. Yeah, there we go. So, you will be able to get a fair bit of damage off of that. Nothing too insane, but still a decent amount. At least for like a 2-hit combo, 24% is not that bad. It's nothing like 50% off of up air into forward smash, but or like down air into up smash with a critical hit and things like that, but it can still add up over time. And then, as I kind of said earlier, up tilt, because I don't think I really mentioned how that was too useful. So up tilt is a really good tool for like anti-air, so if your opponent's jumping a lot, you can throw out an up tilt. As you can see, it has a massive hitbox. Like here, let me just like turn this onto frame by frame for a second just to show you the size of this hitbox. So, as you can see, that line there, that entire blue section, is a pretty good representation of the hitbox. It does cover a bit more area than what's being shown. There are a few pictures you can see of it online in case you are interested, but it covers a lot of range above Hero's head, as you can see, and you can just use that if people are trying to like land on you with aerials. I know there's like a lot of characters like Joker, for instance, who likes to land with a forward air just to start a combo, and if you use something like up tilt here, then you should be able to block out forward airs unless they're expecting that and then they punish. But if they're just doing something like a bunch of forward airs just to try to land that first hit, you can maybe throw out something like this. And as you can see, it's very fast as well. The ending lag on it is pretty big compared to something like down tilt, or like your jab, for instance. Jab's kind of useful, but I'll kind of go over that in a second. Up tilt, even though it does have a bit of landing lag, it is pretty useful, and then it can also hit through platforms as well. It's not too particularly useful for juggling, like it does knock upwards, but Hero's not a character that I would recommend you just juggle your opponents all the time with. And this is for Hero, like, without any down specials or anything like that. I'll get to that kind of stuff in a moment, but like if you're just playing Hero without any of that kind of stuff, then up tilt is pretty useful for catching people that are landing on platforms and you're unsure if they're gonna like tech or roll you, and maybe just throw out an up tilt. Just because up smash has a lot less range. Like up tilt can lead into an up smash, depending on your opponent's DI, if you want to stand still. But as you can see, like it can get a pretty good angle for that. But the problem is that up smash itself is pretty limited in terms of range. Like you'll be able to get more damage out, especially if you get a critical hit and be able to kill and all of that kind of stuff. But up tilt is just a bit safer, I guess. So then you've got your jab, because I did say I was going to go over that. So jab, just a simple 3-hit jab. The first hit actually hits upwards like this, very similar to like Roy Crom's jab, although it doesn't really have as much combo potential as theirs. You can kind of just get the first 2 hits. The second hit is pretty interesting as well, as it's like the exact opposite. It goes down. They kind of make a box. Or at least I find that kind of interesting. You can maybe do something like this to throw off opponents, like not going for the 3rd hit, and they might be getting ready to DI that 3rd hit, or something along those lines, so you might be able to catch them with a grab. But the 3rd hit itself, since a good distance, I would say. It's nothing too special, like you're not going to be able to kill someone with jab, because you can't get a critical hit or anything like that, unless they're at like a very high percent or something along those lines, and you have spirits, all that kind of stuff. But jab itself is pretty fast, so it's kind of decent if someone's in front of you and you want to play a more zoner type of hero with your projectiles. Like you could do something like neutral air into jab. And then you can also use it to catch people off stage, which is something I've seen a lot. So like, let me just forward tilt here, and then you can see like Hero's sword travels a pretty good distance off stage. Let me just forward smash Falcon here. I did not mean to kill. But yeah, as you can see, like if you recover it all into the jab, then you should be hit, because it covers a decent amount of range. Although I can't really get Falcon to go up above the ledge, because he just instantly goes to the ledge, because the CPUs will always recover low, pretty much. Unless you're trying to edge guard them like that, in which case they'll recover high. But, yeah, I guess now we can get into like the useful throws. So down throw is kind of useful. You can do down throw fair. Adds a decent combo. It does 20%, so obviously not a bad 2-hit. Down throw up air also works, and it can kind of lead into a juggle if you want to try to juggle. If not, then you can also use it to try to set up some sort of edge guard with jab like that. So if I knock Falcon off here, as you can see, it kind of made him go somewhat towards the stage. You can also make it where your opponent lands on a platform above you. That's what I was really going to say, and then I tried to say something like that. But if you do down throw up air, and you hit them like directly underneath, then they will kind of bounce upwards like this. It's kind of dependent on DI as well, but they might land on the platform above you, and then you might be able to catch them with like an up tilt. That's not something that for sure can happen, but it just depends on how well you know your opponent. Like if they're going to actually tech, or if they can't tech that well, then you might want to do that. Or if they do tech well, but you know how they tech, then you might want to do that just to show that you understand what they're doing, and they might need to change up their methods. Because if you don't mix up a lot, then your opponents can read you pretty easily. So, yeah, now into your specials. So, neutral special itself, this little second hit here, or not second hit, but if you charge it up a bit, it's very useful for zoning. It's just a pretty straightforward projectile, although it's very fast compared to the just standard hit. This one causes, or I keep calling them hits, this one uses less MP, with the cost of being a bit slower and doing a bit less damage. But this second hit, or it also does less knockback, but this second hit, as you can see, or second form, is much faster. It's still somewhat, or it's not somewhat, but it's still reactable, but it's not anything like this where your opponent can just easily see it unless you fire them from point blank range. Now, whenever you do fully charge, it doesn't really take that long to charge. It uses a lot more MP, but as you can see, it has a bit of startup, so your opponent does have a lot of time to react. It also moves pretty slowly. So your opponent, if they have a reflector, they should be able to react to it unless you're at point blank range, in which case, then yeah, instantly will connect to them. Although you do still have a bit of startup from winding up. So they might be able to interrupt you while you're performing the move. But you need to be careful when performing this move, as whenever you're charging it, you can't regenerate any MP, and then eventually you'll use so much MP that you might not be able to recover. But if you actually have or if you're trying to rebuild MP, I would recommend to keep this fully charged. Just so you don't really waste your MP. So like if you've been spamming this, and you want to make sure that you're not wasting any MP, then if you fully charge it, you might not gain MP for that moment, but you won't be able to fire it until you actually have enough MP to fire it. So just in case you hit like neutral B or something and you waste a lot of MP while you're trying to recover by accidentally hitting neutral B instead of like up special, then that's something you can do. But yeah, now for side special. Side special is extremely powerful if you fully charge it. You can see it was able to kill Falcon at 35 at the ledge, obviously, but I mean, it didn't kill there, but it got kind of close. They'd be able to kill from about here. or no, he's able to just barely live it, but as you can see, it's a very powerful move. This can kill some of the lighter characters at much lower percents, but for Falcon he's a bit heavier, so even the back hit's a bit weaker than the front hit, although it's still able to kill Falcon at ledge here. It's just a very powerful move. The fully charged version is. So you get a bit of super armor while you are in the middle of, like, after the lightning bolt strikes you, you have super armor then. So if your opponent tries to hit you, then they will be hit by the full force of the move, although if they grab you, then it interrupts the move. This move uses a lot of MP though. Not as much as Magic Burst, obviously, but it's still a fairly large amount. And as you can see, it has a very good amount of range. Although you still want to make sure that you kind of hit your opponent with that first bolt of lightning, just to be able to connect the rest of the moves. Although, for side special, if you get this first hit, it's pretty fast, so that's good. Uses a decent amount of MP, but it has a fairly large knockback, so this is a really good move for if you're wanting to just zone out your opponent and then maybe like throw out a few fares to focus more on spacing. Then the first hit of this, or first form of this, is pretty strong. Whereas the second hit it costs a bit more time, obviously, and a bit more MP as well, but you will be able to do much more knockback, much more damage. You could potentially get a kill off of this move, but it's very good for spacing. It also has a lot more range. As you can see there, I was able to hit Falcon from about center stage with that. The third form, it has a lot less range, but a lot more power. And then you also get super armor while you're charging it up. So, both, I would say, like, the first and second form are probably the most useful, but if you're playing against an opponent that just isn't really that great, or they're playing, like, online and their internet connectivity is pretty bad, then the third form could be a bit more useful then, because it will be able to pick up kills very easily due to its high knockback. And then you can also get something like, let me try to find it here, like Psych Up, or something along those lines. Psych Up, and then there's another one as well. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Oomph, that's what it's called. They increase your damage and knockback, so those could be used with that move to be able to kill very early. Like, even earlier than the move already kills, and the move already kills pretty early. But, I'm crouching a lot, if you can't tell, that's just my controller drifting. Sorry about that, but I would use my other controller, like, I can use it for Smash even though it's slightly broken. The left ZL doesn't work. But I just wanted to use this controller, because I do prefer this one. I'm gonna try to fix the drifting issue. I've been looking more into that to see how I can fix it. But yeah, now back to Hero here. So we've got Up Special to cover next. So Up Special has 3 forms as well. So you've got the first form, the second form, which allows you to travel a bit further than the first, and then the third form, which is fully charged, will allow you to travel the furthest, and it will also do the most amount of damage and things like that. So, if you like reflect this move, like if you're playing against a character with a reflector and then you have a reflector, so if you're basically doing like a hero versus hero, then Up Special is like one of the most powerful moves that I've at least seen in the game. Due to that, like, if you're in like a reflector battle, it can do up to like 500% just from the reflector. But Up Special itself isn't that great of an option. Like, for out of shield, I mean, I guess it's okay, because it does have a decent amount of hits done, so if you do hit your opponent with it, then you should be able to move away from them, unless you go into the path that they're going into. So like if you do something like this, you should be able to maybe get some space off it, but it doesn't really have that much range, so you have to be right next to your opponent pretty much for it to work. Even with the second form, it still doesn't really cover that much. Although it should be able to space. Like, these two are mainly used for recovering and then out of shield, I would say. Or I would say even like the fully charged form, although I wouldn't recommend to use that out of shield. They cover, like the weaker ones cover a decent amount of distance for recovering. However, the fully charged one is able to allow you to recover much further. But yeah, the fully charged form of Up Special does a decent amount of damage. I find this move really useful for edge guarding. So, like if I'm doing something like this, I might throw out an up special here just to catch them. It will most likely bring them back to stage, like, even if they tag it, they'll live. But it does it does like about 28% for free, pretty much, so. I mean, you get back to stage if you perform the move at a good enough spot. Like, if you're performing it underneath the stage, like this, then you might not make it back to stage. But, I mean, if you're using it to edgeguard like this, then you should be able to make it back to stage and get a bit of percent on your opponent while you're at it. Although you could just go for something like down air, which is a spike, or traditional edgeguard methods, like running off and doing forward air, things like that. But this one will knock them upwards and will just build up percent. So maybe, like, if you're playing against Falcon and he's like at 46 or 35, I don't think he's going to be able to die from, like, a forward air, so I'll just throw out an up special, and now he's at 63%. So then, if I throw him off again, he's at 71, and forward air is probably going to send him far enough away to where he can't recover after he uses his jump, which it did. But you do have to be careful if you do use the fully charged form of up special. As you can see there, it can actually catch opponents when they're recovering. Like, they might try to drift into it, so that can reset their up special, and then they can get back to stage. I've had that happen a few times. It's kind of like with Mega Man's Rush Coil. Your opponent can actually bounce off of that as well, so you need to be careful where you use it. And then they can just use it to boost their own recovery, like you did. So that's kind of the advantage of using the weaker forms of up special, is that they don't last as long, so your opponent has a much lower chance of being able to get back to stage using them. And then you've got Zoom as well. I guess I'll cover it here. So Zoom has a higher chance of appearing in your inventory if you're off stage, or at least that's what I've heard. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have any way to check that outside of just, like, doing this 100 times, so I'm just gonna take people's word on it, because these were from, like, sites that were providing frame data and things like that, so yeah, as you can see, Zoom just allows you to get back to stage for free. As long as you use it while you're or while you don't have anything above your head, then you will be able to fly in the air like that, and then it just returns you to above the stage, where you can perform a jump if you have an extra jump. And then you can also perform any aerial, and then, like, air dodges and things like that in the air, but you just fall down pretty much from the sky. If you do perform this move underneath the stage, you'll hit your head on the stage. I'll kind of show it with up special, so it'll be something like that, and then you just won't make it back to stage. So make sure that if you do perform the move that you perform it off stage, kind of like over here. And then, as you can see, it just gets you back to stage pretty fast, so you can just use that to get out of disadvantage for free, pretty much, or at least off-stage disadvantage. You can also do that for on-stage, but it does have a bit of a startup. Although, while you are moving upwards, you are invincible, so that can allow you to get out of a few situations, like if someone's charting a forward smash here, and then they actually somehow catch you doing Zoom, then it will be able to just go straight through, kind of like with Joker's up special. The earlier frames of the up special are invincible, whereas the later frames aren't. But with Heroes, his invincibility frames start kind of in the middle, and whenever he's falling back down, he doesn't have any invincibility. So you do have to know how to land, which I'd recommend, like, down air or neutral air for landing. Although if you're, like, landing and your opponent's, like, over here, then maybe a forward air. I wouldn't recommend back air for landing if you're trying to land close to someone, due to its startup, or not startup, but ending lag, so if you miss it, it's not that safe. Although, if you're trying to retreat from someone, then I would recommend back air, because that will knock them further away. You can also use forward air in that scenario. I just wouldn't recommend neutral air or down air for that. But, yeah, now for down special itself. So you've got a lot of options here in down special. You've got things like Magic Burst, you've got things like Snooze, and you've got things like Metal Slash here, that all have unique properties and uses, or at least semi-unique. So yeah, I'll kind of go over them as I see them. So with Whack, has a small percent chance to insta-kill. That percent will increase depending on your opponent's percent, as well as Hero's percent. So if Hero's at a higher percent and your opponent's, like let's say you're both at 100, then it's going to have a pretty high chance to be able to instantly kill. Same thing with Thwack. if I can pull that up. So here's Thwack. So you can see it has a much larger hitbox, although it's not a projectile. With Hocus Pocus, it gives you a random chance of getting a buff or debuff temporarily, so give me invincibility, which is a buff, although it can give you things like slowness, flowers, and poison, which are debuffs that each have a negative effect. It can also use one of the spells that you have inside of your command menu, which is what this is called. Then you have Hatchet Man, which is used to instantly break shields or instantly get a critical hit. Although it does have a bit of a startup, as you can see there. Now, Sizzle is a very useful move. It uses a lot of MP. Sizz is a weaker form of that, but they're both pretty useful. So this can allow you to get pretty easy stage control. If you like to zone with Hero, then you want to be fishing for Sizzle and Sizz. If you can't get Sizzle and Sizz, like, here's what I'd recommend doing. I'd recommend to do something like this. Make sure your opponent can't follow you, then look for something like Sizzle or Sizz, and then you can just throw it out, or something like Kaboom as well might work in this scenario. But, these moves just allow you to pretty much get control of the stage for free. They can be reflected and things like that, but it's very difficult to notice. And as you can see with Hocus Pocus there, I got a flower. Bang and Kaboom are very similar. Bang is a weaker version of Kaboom. Not all moves have a weaker version, just a few. So let me try to find Kaboom here. I already showed Kaboom, but I just want to kind of show it again. So here, as you can see, it creates a much larger projectile than Bang and does a lot more knockback and damage, but both pretty much do the same thing, right? They just kind of get you stage control, or stage control. Now, Psych Up and, let me try to find Oomph here. These moves can stack, and then also Accelerate will be useful here. So, oh wait, that was Accelerate. I'm just kind of searching through this menu here, looking for it. So, here's Oomph. As you can see, it will make your damage output and knockback pretty insane. Like, that did 60%, and it wasn't even charged very long. Accelerate, my card didn't mention it at the beginning, but it increases your movement speed, or in the air and on the ground temporarily. Psych Up lasts until you land a hit. That includes a hit on shields. And then your Oomph and your Accelerate last for a few seconds, and then they'll go away. But they can allow you to get out of a few rough situations. Heal heals you about 11%. It can only be used 2 times per stock, so if you're playing a 3-stock game, you can only heal up to 6 times. Which, I mean, that's still 66%, so it's not too bad, but it's not incredibly useful. Snooze can put opponents in the air to sleep, as well as on the ground, although it can be reflected and shielded, as well as like spot dodge and things like that. But it does move pretty slow, so you want to make sure that you time things like that properly. Bounce will reflect all projectiles of every kind, and also for some reason it makes Charizard's Flare Blitz not be able to connect a strong hit, so you just take a bit less knockback and damage, but it can still kill. I've had it kill at least, but that was less on Spiritless. But yeah, Bounce, you can move around with the shield on you. I don't know if I'll be able to pull it up again, as it is a completely random chance of what you get. But yeah, here we go. So you have like a 1 out of 4. It's a bit lower than 1 out of 4, but yeah, as you can see, like, I can move around with it, do things, and then I don't have to worry about projectiles, which Hero's shield already blocks any projectiles in front of him as long as he's standing still, or forward tilting, so projectiles just really aren't that much of a problem for Hero. Then you've got your Crackle Slash and Heat Slash. Now, these moves have a ridiculously large hitbox. I don't have any method of showing them on stream, but yeah, that's the size of the hitbox there. Like, that's about the limit. It's about to here. Metal Slash is a lot more tame. Although I'll go over all of them at the same time. So, Flame Slash, as you can see, it's very fast, has a lot of range. It's just used to hit your opponent pretty much. Not necessarily sure on its kill powers. I don't really pull up the command menu a lot whenever I get kills, but I mean, like, if I do, then it's usually not because of Flame Slash, but your Crackle Slash, if I can find that, here we go, has about the same hitbox as well as being able to freeze your opponent, so you could use it to get a hit, although they can mash out of it. And then Metal Slash does about 1% to a regular opponent, but if your opponent is metal, and not like made out of metal like Samus, but actually has like a metal effect on them, then it will instantly kill them. And I'll try to pull that up here. It has a pretty small chance of showing up in the menu because it's not too useful. I believe it does have a higher chance if opponents are metal. So like certain moves like that, that are based on certain things, like you don't really want to use zoom on stage. I mean, there are some scenarios where you do, but like most of the time you don't want to use that on stage, so it doesn't show up in the command menu that much. But if you're off stage, then it will. And like you don't really want to use metal slash if you aren't dealing with a metal opponent, but if they are metal, you do. So they'll show up more if certain conditions are met, but they can still show up at any time. And then, let's see, so I guess we got Magic Burst and Kamikaze next. Or I guess Kuklang. Where's that? Here we go. So Kuklang, as you can see, just gives you temporary intangibility. It will go away though. It also does have a hitbox on the bottom if you land on opponents, kind of like with Kirby's Rock, but here, let me try to find it in the menu. Not a lot of people know about this, but hold on. It doesn't really do that much damage or anything. It's just kind of there, but I do kind of want to show it. I missed my opportunity there. Let me just try to go here. I missed it, but yeah, you can kind of just land on people with it. It's basically the same thing as Kirby's Rock, but I can't really show. But yeah, I'm just not that great at that timing, personally. But if you're much higher in the air, it's a bit easier to perform. Although, we'll just give you intangibility until it disappears. It does have a bit of in-lag, though. So if you do have that active, then you can, or your opponent can kind of just wait for it to end and then get like a Falcon Punch or something on you. You will also be able to die to Metal Slash instantly if you do perform this move. Then let's get into Magic Burst and Kamikaze. So these moves have a pretty large hitbox, so that's kind of why I wanted to go over them at the same time. So I'll just try to find them. Kamikaze has a very low chance of showing up in the menu, so I'm going to show that one first. Here we go. So it uses 1%, makes Hero invincible to 63.1%. It does or it like goes through shields pretty much, so you have to make sure that you're invincible with like an air dodge or a roll whenever this is happening. And if you perform it off stage, then you will be able to kind of float in the air at the ledge. So if you do it at ledge, then you're just able to use it to edgeguard for free, pretty much. But if you don't want to use that move to edgeguard for free, as it will result in you losing a stock, so... And you do die first, that, here, let me try to find it. I can just do it while Falcon's up here, actually. So, that will lead into Magic Burst, wherever it is. It does have a random chance, there we go. So this will use all of your MP. It doesn't use 100, it just uses the amount that you have. It does about 61.4% if you do have 100 MP. And it covers a very large distance. So this can be used to hit opponents underneath and above the ledge. If you're using it in center stage, it covers all the way to about where Falcon's standing. Like, you pretty much have to be where, like, you see how Falcon's foot is off of the ledge? Like, kind of floating in the air. That's pretty much where you need to be for Magic Burst and not be able to hit you. If it's performed in the center with full MP, as you can see. It does have a bit of startup, like a very small amount, so you can hit Hero during that startup to cancel the move. But if you don't do that, then you pretty much die if you're anywhere in the radius of the explosion, because it just does a ton of knockback and damage. And it edgeguards for free, as I kind of said earlier, due to it being able to hit underneath the ledge. You don't want to perform this move while you're off stage, though, because you won't be able to get any MP back and be able to perform enough special. But speaking of how to get MP back, you can either let it recharge, so as long as you're not looking in the command menu or charging up a spell, then it will recharge over time. But if you just want to get it quickly, it will recharge depending on the amount of percent that you do to your opponent. It's actually a set value, but that doesn't really matter unless you're playing in spirits. So, like, it did 15.1% damage there, and I got 15 MP back. It doesn't stack or anything like that. So, like, next time I use a move, it will still use the regular amount. But, it does give that much back. So like here, let me just throw out the side special here. So that did 50, or I'm at like 62. So now if I jab, did about 3.7%. So it did a bit less there for the MP there, but it does carry over if you do the full jab to match the percent, or at least it's somewhat close to it. So you can always just use the percent to see how much MP you're gaining back if you don't want to look down at your character. You'd rather be able to focus a bit more on the match. You can look at your opponent's percent because you do want to keep track of that in your head somewhat during a match, so it's a bit more realistic to be able to keep track of that just based on the percent that you're doing to them. But it will not recharge if you hit your opponent with a move that uses MP. Like, so if I did this here, it does, what, like about, what was that, 47%? Somewhere around that. So I did 47%, but I didn't get 47 MP back. It just doesn't stack like that. Same thing for up special, it uses 18%, and I did 23.9, but I didn't get any MP back. That's just kind of how it trades. It wouldn't really make sense for you to be able to use MP and gain MP at the same time. But, as stated earlier, you do want to make sure that if you do use a lot of MP, so like if I keep spamming moves on the menu here, I use a lot of MP very quickly. Especially if I use something like Magic Burst, but as you can see, I'm out of MP. Pretty much I'm at 8, so the moves that do cost MP that are higher than 8 will be grayed out, and then the ones that are white you can use. But as you can see, you just won't do anything, and you also will not be charging MP while you're in this menu. Same thing for like if you're charging a slide special, you won't be gaining MP during the charging animation. It's pretty much the same for any type of spell that you perform. Or no, it is the same for any type of spell you perform. But you also, or I should also mention that you do gain MP while you do have effects like Balance or Accelerate active. So you can still gain MP while these magical effects are active. I did also forget to mention that Accelerate does make your jump height a bit higher as well. But yeah, I would say that's going to cover it for the hero guide. I kind of touch up on, I think I did all of his moves, although I was originally just going to do the useful ones. I kind of just gave my opinions on how you could play hero. If you didn't want to focus a lot on spells, you could use moves like up air to combo. Like up air forward smash is a true combo that can kill at about 30% if you do get a critical hit. And then you've also got like down air up smash that can kill at a bit later percents, although it can kill for much longer. Like, it kills without a critical hit at 90, or somewhere around 90, and then with a critical hit it kills at about 70, because it won't be able to bounce your opponent high enough until about that percent. Or, I would say, yeah, about that percent. But as you can see, it still does 40% damage, so it's not too bad of a move just to use in general. Or not like too bad of a combo just to use in general. Although, you might want to go for up tilt at lower percents, because that's a lot faster than up smash, and a bit safer to throw out as well. But yeah, and then I covered edge guarding without and with spells, so you just kind of use Magic Burst and Kamikaze as edge with spells, although you can like use projectiles, I guess, as well. It might not be as useful. And then without spells, you want to go for something like forward air or back air, and maybe down air as well at the ledge. Or even something like up special with spells, due to it being able to force opponents to have to tech. Or you can kind of just build up some percent on them if they're at a lower percent. So you don't, like if they have a good enough recovery to be able to make the stage, if you hit them with a forward air at a low percent, you might want to go for something like up special. That'll return them back to stage, but it will do a lot more damage than a forward air unless you have like oomph active. Especially if your forward air is still from using it on stage to knock them off stage in the first place. And then for combo throws, down throw, it's pretty much the only combo throw that you have, and it combos into forward air, and it also combos into up air. Although it does not combo into back air, because back air has a bit more startup. Or at least I have been unable to get it to combo into back air. Yeah, now let me just do some taunts in the center for thumbnail for this. So, I got up taunt, although let me move the camera. So yeah, you got up taunt, side taunt, and down taunt. So yeah, that's going to cover it for now. I just wanted to do a short stream today, and that's pretty much all that I have time for as well. So I'm going to end this here, and it will be out on YouTube tomorrow, I think. Although I did stream this live just because I like to stream the guides live on Twitch. Just in case I get something wrong, people can correct me in chat, as well as just being able to show all the steps happen in real time, because I know I used to watch guides on things that would involve a lot of steps, and people would just edit past some of the steps, and I would get confused a lot. But if you do the guides live, kind of like what I'm doing, then it's a bit easier to follow. But yeah, I'm just going to end this stream here, and I guess we'll see everyone in the next one.